Good morning, everyone. A quick update from the postcard story. I've seen people sending it to the House of Commons, just says House of Commons, Ottawa, Canada, and then addressing to Pierre Poilievre or to other conservative people in the House to deliver to Trudeau on the House floor. All sorts of ideas. This one's also going to 80 Wellington Street in Ottawa, KIAOA2, just in case you were wanting to send one of your own when you get one in the mail. And this one says, "You resign, you are the worst thing ever to happen to Canada. SNC, we... blackface, ethics violations, liar, corrupt." Yeah, well, that about covers it, doesn't it? Okay, this was an interesting thing I saw last night just before going to bed, and I thought, how compelling is this going to be? And it had the words, and my phone turns off automatically by itself and silences itself. After 10, it silences itself, and after 11, it's just off. And so at 10 o'clock, I could read the words. And it was a compelling video. This was very compelling because I thought to myself, this illustrates really well how the longer something goes on, it doesn't matter the data, and it doesn't matter the data, but the longer it goes on, the longer it's reality, then people will just accept it. Listen to what happens here in this room. This person sets the reality for the entire room, and it's false. Here we go.
Despite what you might be thinking, these two circles are not equal. I repeat, these two circles are not equal. One is in fact larger than the other. What I need you to do is determine which one that is. So, please raise your hand if you believe the blue circle is larger than the red. All right. Please raise your hand if you believe the red circle is larger than the blue. All right, very good. Now, before I said anything about these two circles, what was your first instinct? Equal, right? Because they look equal. And the reason why they look equal is because, in fact, they are equal. These two circles are identical. Yet I got just about every one of you to raise your hand and say that they're not. So what do we learn? That you can be manipulated like that to believe in something that goes against your natural instincts. Just imagine as a child you're taught that the blue circle is larger than the red. If you say it enough times, you convince yourself that's the truth. If you're told the lie enough times, it becomes part of your reality. And if enough people are taught that lie, that the blue circle is larger than the red, well, now it becomes part of the culture. And if that culture then passes that misinformation along to the next generation, well, now it becomes tradition.
I don't know why the blue one is bigger than the red one, Timmy. It just is. Don't ask questions about that. That's too complicated. We can't open that bag of worms up. Bag of worms? Who's got a bag of worms? Okay, how does this relate to Canadian politics? Well, I'll tell you. The culture has been shifted, right? In Toronto public health, in Ontario public health, the culture has been shifted to that of masking. Mandatory masking in schools. The longer the mandatory masking goes on, the longer the wisdom, the culture says that it's true, the longer it is likely, or the more likely it is to become a tradition. Something that just happens. Don't question it. Just put the mask on your face. Something that goes against your nature, your instincts. Something that your body is telling you, this is not so good, right? People get impetigo on the outside. I saw a baby the other day with red. Like I could see the mask on their face even though they weren't wearing a mask because they're masked so much in daycares or wherever they are spending their day. Doesn't matter about all of the impacts, right? All that matters is culture. Don't question the culture because it's a tradition. That's where we're heading. That's what they want. The abuse that I reported yesterday and the day before at the Toronto Public Health seems worried about this. Yesterday, Anthony Furey, just as I was starting my show, he put this out. As of 9:35 a.m. today, Toronto Public Health has formally revised the child self-isolation guidelines to remove any mention of keeping the child away from other family members. This comes after reporting on the issue from the Toronto Sun. Good job, Anthony Furey. I think he's doing great work at exposing the garbage that's happening, the abusive crap that's happening, and well done, Anthony Furey. Yesterday, I was prepping for, and I presented at the Board of Health annual meeting. Here's the Board of Health annual meeting Zoom meeting. I uploaded it to YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. They don't ever address anything that I said. I speak right at the beginning. 2:02 is where I start, and I outlined my feelings on the whole thing. And you can read what I wrote just in case you don't want to listen to it. I'm not gonna read it out or anything like that. It's a full 5 minutes. I timed it. And I thought it was impactful. I thought it was funny that Dr. Mercer said, thank you to our Mark. Thank you to Mark for, all that honesty. Yikes. I could see people were uncomfortable. I could see they were moving and they were fidgety. I could see they didn't necessarily like or agree with what I was saying. That's fine. They didn't engage with me on it, which I think is probably strategic. And I think that it's difficult because I was being honest. I wasn't trying to do gotcha politics, or I wasn't trying to yell at them. I wasn't trying to say, this is garbage and rah, 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 rah. Even though I feel like a lot of it is garbage and rah, rah, rah. And I feel like the more that we all play this COVID game, yesterday I got talking about the COVID game and I stopped talking. If you start playing the COVID game, oh yeah, we need the cases to come down. Oh yeah, we need vaccines to open up. Oh yeah, then you can't stop playing the COVID game. Like if they can just get a little, if you can agree to just a little, then it's the whole thing. Like the whole full. Well, we can't have bars open, right? Too much money for insurance, right? The risk is too high. Can't have people all gathering together. That's dangerous, right? COVID game. That's the COVID game I'm talking about. And so the COVID game in this situation is, well, the crackpots who are calling the abuse of children are crackpots and should just be ignored. So we'll let them say their piece in a public setting here, which is good because I got it on the record. But they're going to ignore me, and that's the strategy. But I followed up because I do have questions, and the questions were sent in an email. What metrics are we using? Specifically, what metrics are we using? And I'll get to the fact that other people are now asking the same question. What metrics are we using? In Toronto, they're in gray. There's no reason for gray. The metrics aren't for gray, but they're in gray lockdown. This is crazy because it stifles the economic activity, right? It's bankrupting restaurants, and I'll get to that as well. But we're all playing the COVID game, and we're all willing to abuse our children. And we're all, well, not all, but a lot of people are willing to abuse their children because the authority figure, the public health, which is what I explained in my statement yesterday, is telling them that we must continue the experiment. We must continue. We can't possibly stop. We have to continue this. And if we stop, what? Right? The children may stop being abused. I think there's need for immediate action. And that was what I was calling for yesterday. And it fell on deaf ears. And I know that. I knew that going in. But the point wasn't, it would be great if they were like, you know what, you're right. This is an urgent and we should talk about this. I didn't expect that to happen. It would be great if after this they say, there were some good points there. We should talk about this. And then some movement happened. I would be ecstatic if some movement happened. I would be ecstatic if more states started to open up like Texas. And this whole, and that unleashed a chain of events that was undeniable, and Ford had to do something too, right? If the entire United States is open and Como is removed from power and all of these things happen, then maybe we've got a shot. But if we are going to be taking the cues of these public health people, you can tell them your policies are directly leading to the abuse of children because the policies are bad, and parents believe the bad advice that they're being given by public health, and they believe that we'll be on hook for a $5,000 fine. With the letter, right? If you get a letter from a school board saying if you don't follow this advice, you could be charged under public health and the Public Health Act. So I think that I would be ecstatic if we opened all up. And I'm terrified that we're going to keep playing this COVID game forever and ever and ever. And that's what I'm worried about. Here's my letter. I talked about that already. Okay, getting into cabinet. Yesterday, it was revealed that in 2018, this is Jonathan Vance. In 2018, he had a Me Too moment. And yesterday, the testimony from the former military ombudsman was explosive, to say the least. People are saying, well, Don Martin says, I can't see how Harjit Sajjan survives this revelation today by former military ombudsman. The defense minister displayed willful blindness and covered up former CDC Vance's alleged inappropriate behavior, clearly a firing offense. So the ombudsman had something that was concerning, a report of potentially chargeable offenses, and he brought that to Harjit Sajjan, and he had evidence with him, and he said, I'm going to show you the evidence, and Harjit said, no, backed up from the table, no, I don't want to see it, no, thank you very much, and then he didn't bring it to the Prime Minister. What was happening in 2018, right? SNC Lavalin. And I mean, there was so many, and Mark Norman was the big thing in this realm, right? Like I remember it was New Year's Eve 2018 going into 19, and it was literally December 31st, and I was like, I can't believe this is, like, I don't know enough about Mark Norman, and then I ended up doing a double header video, 2 half-hour videos about Mark Norman because I didn't understand the case, and I understood it after that. But in that period of time, Jonathan Vance is being a inappropriate sexual person with people under his command. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And the leadership knew about it, and they were going after Mark Norman for having the audacity and the gall to dare to build the Asterix, which is a refueling ship. Okay, I mean, weird, right? Weird. All of that happening, and then in the context of that, finding this out years later, right? 2021, man, transparent accountability. Those Liberal government, right? I asked the Prime Minister's office if Trudeau still had confidence in Sajjan as defense minister. The response from a spokesperson, of course he has confidence in the minister. That was 16 hours ago. I wonder how long you'll have confidence in the minister. I wonder if, I don't know if this is going to be a big story. I'm not sure. I mean, I think that it probably is. Like yesterday, I saw it on Twitter before I knew what was really going on. I knew that he was going to be testifying, but I was like, where can I see this? Where's this live streaming? And I found the live stream and I watched the live stream live, and he kept trying to wiggle out of it. He was like, I had something and I had to ask the minister for his guidance. Like, I don't see a problem with this. Why are you guys reacting like there's a problem? And it was very interesting because he was trying to figure out their angle, and they clearly knew what they were getting at. They clearly had answers they wanted from him, and specific answers about specific things, like why, like what was your rationale for this, and blah blah blah. And he was thinking that he had said nothing bad. Now again, right back to the beginning here, the longer it goes on, if nothing happens, if Sajjan stays in his role and nobody's questioning this or concerned about this, and people aren't calling for his head, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, do I think anything's going to happen? It's a toss-up. It's a toss-up, right? The PMO's, of course he's got confidence in the minister. I don't know. Okay, getting into lockdowns. I've said that Aaron O'Toole is lost in the weeds, man. He's like, yeah, man, we need a vaccine, and the Liberals aren't doing it well, which is exactly the problem that Andrew Scheer had, right? Like, you know what the Liberals are doing? They're doing it terribly, and we could do it so much better. If you just give us a chance, we're so much better at it. And then he'd say, when Stephen Harper was in charge. Great, man. It's all Stephen Harper's fault. And when Stephen Harper was the prime minister. But here's Aaron O'Toole missing an obvious opportunity to take a lot of people who are very, very frustrated at every single level in Alberta, in Ontario. Alberta lesser now because they're open in phase 2 or something like that now. But people are upset. Alberta's going conservative anyway. But there are a lot of people who are upset, and in Ontario, people upset with Doug Ford, no less. And the fact that Aaron O'Toole is the same party, Conservative Party, right, as Doug Ford, it's PC and CPC. I understand the difference, but still they're Conservatives. And Aaron O'Toole is not taking any of that kind of statements. He's not taking the lockdown people, the people who are disaffected with lockdowns. He's not taking the economic route. What does he take? We could do vaccines better. Like, we can't open the economy until everyone's vaccinated. I've got a vaccine string of tabs that are coming up, and yeah, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. But we've got a Conservative MP who is making, an MP is the federal level, who is making moves by aligning himself with independent now MP Robin Babber. And so David Sweet is the Conservative MP who says, David Sweet joined Robin Babber at MPP at Queen's Park today, calling to end the lockdowns and move Ontario into the green. So it's not just like, and end the lockdowns and move us. Well, see, I would prefer if they were like, let's move us into complete 100% unregulated, no problem, everything open up. Never mind this green garbage. Like, don't play the COVID game, right? As soon as you get into the COVID game, we'll open up in green. Then they'll ratchet up the testing. They'll say, look at all these cases. Oh my goodness, there's cases. And then 4 or 5 academic papers will come out and say, oh my goodness, Ontario needs to be more responsible. Meanwhile, nothing will happen. Nothing will have happened. I've taken a picture every day of the Guelph Wellington Dufferin Health Unit, and all that happened was yesterday they changed the reporting. So now, and yesterday I thought they removed it. Now they did remove it for being fine grained. It used to be you could see how many people per health unit, or not per health unit, per hospital, I guess, like for Guelph and Orangeville and like Wellington North or whatever. But now it's in the overview tab, and in the overview tab there's only 3 people in the hospital. So I think it's really strange. Whereas the Guelph had 4 in the hospital the day before, but I think it's really strange that they would change it without kind of mentioning anything. It's like, oh, people don't look at this, they won't notice. No. Thanks. Anyway, sorry. So back to this. I think that it's interesting they're playing the lockdown game, open us in green. They say lockdowns are harmful to the physical and psychological well-being of Ontarians. We should focus on protecting the vulnerable in long-term care homes and congregate living settings. I moved myself out of the way here. I can't read all of it. David and I are saying publicly what many elected representatives are saying privately. The effects of the lockdown are devastating to the mental health, and well-being of Ontarians. We need to protect LTC care homes and let Ontarians go back to a semblance of normal. That's the best thing to do for their health. Yeah, and I definitely agree. The idea that we're at the mercy of these public health people and we have to continue to abuse our children because they refuse to act is falsy. faulty. Here is Roman Babber saying, thank you, David Sweet, for speaking publicly with me against the lockdowns. Today, I invite all Conservative MPs, MPPs, and MLAs to stand up for your principles and constituents who are suffering mentally, physically, and financially. Don't fear, they need your voice. And here is, I've got conflict of interest to show you as well today. But anyway, here's Mark Gerritsen. And he's saying, the true test of Aaron O'Toole's character and position of leadership is about to be on full display. Will he do the same as Ford Nation and eject this member from his caucus? Mark Gerritsen is a Liberal MP from Kingston, and he is calling for the removal of Mr. Sweet for daring to question the narrative, right? How dare he question the Liberals? How dare he say lockdowns don't work, despite the evidence of my long list of Sweden, Florida, Georgia, North Dakota, South Carolina. I'm sure there's more. There was one that I was saying, there was one more because it rolled off the tongue, but I can't remember what it is now. Here is a presentation by Lieutenant Colonel David Redman, and that's him. And if he was my Lieutenant Colonel, I'd feel like I was back in watching MASH when I was a kid, right? Like that looks like Colonel Potter a little bit, right? And I liked MASH. And he's one of the people who helps with the emergency response teams. So like when there's a problem, he was using wildfires as an example, but in a health emergency, it's the same coordination effort. And he goes through the problem with the Canadian response. This is worth a watch. I think I'm 15, 20 minutes in, maybe 25 minutes in. And it's a compelling presentation. They introduce it here, these two, and then there's a proper like talk that is given by Mr. Redmond to an audience, right? And it's very worthwhile, in my opinion, talking about the missteps and failures of the response to COVID-19 across the whole spectrum, like across the whole response. What we've done is repeatedly shoot ourselves in the foot, and then ignored anybody who tried to say, hey, don't point that gun at your foot. You keep shooting yourself in the foot, right? It's like a parody of reality, except it's true. And the foot that we're shooting is like economic stability and economic good books that Canada used to be in, right? Like the economy and all of the fail-safes we had, all of the room and we've got lots of room on the credit card. We actually had $1 billion in the bank. Now we're, trillions in debt and multiple billions in deficit. And what are you going to do, right? Trudeau's got this. Budgets balance themselves, right? Here's CTV Toronto. This is the same thing. It's an article about David Sweet, so that's good. Dan Kelly says, it finally appears that some Toronto and Peel businesses will be able to open next week, more than 100 consecutive days after they were shut tight for the second round of lockdowns. This will only apply to retailers. Other sectors, including dining, gyms, salons, will remain fully closed. CFIB will continue to push hard to safely reopen all small businesses. One day I'll have to write the book on behind-the-scenes work to fight for small business owners during the pandemic. I'd love to hear who told you, Dan, that making it fair would equal having big retailers remove non-essential items. I want to know who gave you that advice, because it's not you coming up with that. I want to know. I'm interested who planted that seed, because somebody did, and I'm sure it wasn't you. Okay, back to this, because nobody thinks to themselves, it would be fair keeping the small retailers shut and removing consumer choice. That would be fair. Morons. Anyway, back to this. Not Dan necessarily, but the people who are coming up with these idiotic plans, they're the morons. Okay, back to Dan Kelly. For most currently closed businesses in Toronto and Peel, restaurants, gyms, salons, arts, entertainment, recreation, Monday will see the existing lockdown replaced with a color-coded lockdown. The name will be different, the outcome the same. Yes, and it is abhorrent that these people like Davila and like Mercer and like all of the people that we've been trying to say what you're doing and what you're saying that the outcome of what you're doing is supposed to be, they're different, right? Like what you're doing is having a different outcome than what you're saying it should have. It's what you're saying the outcome should be, right? If a year ago they said, next year, the only choice we're going to have is the continued destruction and bankrupting of your business for everyone's safety, would you have accepted the last year? I don't think so, right? Here's Brian Lilly. I don't know what his game is either. There's a game there, though. Toronto Medical Officer E.P. Davila has asked what data she has to support keeping gyms, barbers, and hair salons closed, and she speaks vaguely of protecting public health, but offers no data. No data. I asked for data yesterday. What data? Here's my data. Here's why I believe what I believe, and I presented that in my letter, which you can see on my website here. The letter and this is what I did yesterday. And there's no data. They don't have data to back up what they're doing. As far as I can tell, I can't find the data that says, you know what, lockdowns are really working really well, that's the only way. That's the only solution. There's nothing else we could possibly do. Error 2. Okay. Anyway, that's the only thing we could possibly do, and I just think that that's faulty, right? So here's Silviana Bolano, MD, and she is a doctor, and I don't know if she's out of Canada. I'm not exactly sure if she's out of Canada or not. I think so. But she says, truly disturbing to see my colleagues in public health in Toronto can only see the world now through COVID-19 lens. I can only imagine the devastation that this will bring to Toronto. And this is news in officials in Peel and Toronto asked to be placed in gray lockdown category. So here is an open letter to Doug Ford and Dr. Davila and John Tory. An open letter to the three of you in regards to the impact of Toronto and Peel only moving to gray zone and not realizing that a move to red zone at minimum is required for restaurant survival. So here is the letter. It says, my name is Reagan Irvine, and I'm the owner of the Irv Gastro Pub and partner of Super Bargain Cocktail and Snack Bar located in the Cabbagetown neighborhood of Toronto. I'm writing you because the independent restaurants cannot remain limited to takeout service any longer and expect to survive. I believe in public safety and protecting our most vulnerable populations, and I believe the restaurants can operate to a maximum capacity of 10 guests and uphold safety standards. I'll pause here and say, don't play the COVID game. It's not worth it. You're not going to win. You're not going to say, oh, please, if we could just take 5 people, customers. It's not, they're going to say, oh, well, those 5 people led to it. No proof. They don't have any proof. Anyway, back to this. I vow to follow the municipal guidelines established by the city to ensure safe operations, including but not limited to capacity restrictions, physical distancing, contact tracing, health screening of staff and patrons, and diligent sanitation procedures. I believe that my fellow restaurant owners will agree this is a small ask when the stakes are so high to save our businesses. I think it's so sad that we're in a situation where restaurants are literally begging. We'll do anything. We spent money already. We'll do anything. We'll put plastic barriers up. We'll do anything. And it falls on deaf ears. People who have never had to run a business, people who have sat in doctors' offices and across municipal board tables to hammer out deals for blah, 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 but they haven't had to run businesses. John Tory owns Rogers, right? Like, he directs the funds Rogers gets. And I'm not understanding, he's not a manager of Rogers. He's part of the Rogers Trust Table. The Rogers Trust Table is family, like people with the last name Rogers. And John Tory's dad was best friends with Gene Roger. I can't remember the name. It doesn't matter the first name. The parent Roger, the guy who started Rogers in the first place. That's why John Tory is on the Rogers Trust Table, right? So he owns it. He understands business, but macro, I guess, and doesn't get that if the government mandates that you are not allowed to run, your business doesn't make any money. You've just got bills. It's not a business that you've got bills. So these people are literally begging, okay? I'm confused by the restaurants, back to the letter. I'm confused by the restaurants being blamed for spreading COVID-19 when there's limited data and science to prove that theory. I have 1,300 contacts and COVID screening forms for the brief time my patio was allowed to open. That data has never been collected from myself or any other establishment I've spoken with. So we collect this data. We're willing to do anything. This is why I think you shouldn't play the game. Like, call them out on their ridiculous procedures. We followed the procedure and you didn't do anything with it. You don't have the capacity to do anything with it. Let them open. Let them open. It's criminal what they're doing. It's as criminal as the abuse being done to our children in schools at the behest of public health, because it's continuing. It is continuing to happen. Roman Babber says, even if we accept the arbitrary metrics invented by public health, they don't seem to follow them. Toronto should not be in gray. Leadership is missing in action. Ford Nation, John Tory are afraid to disagree with public health as everyday families lose everything. This is not an understatement. Like, Simcoe and Thunder Bay are in lockdown. Simcoe's R number is green. There's no red in Simcoe at all. In Thunder Bay, the only ones in red are the percent positivity and the R number. The cases, etc., are not triggering red. There's a very interesting situation happening where the metric, it's like watching Whose Line Is It Anyway, right? The metrics don't matter and the rules are made up. So just hope you don't get on the wrong side of Drew Carey, right? Like, and that's a scary place to be, because how can you possibly reasonably plan for the future if you can't make any plans for the future, because the rules are going to keep changing, right? Toronto's, here's a conflict of interest. So I've talked about David Feisman. He's a doctor, and we'll talk about him and his unprofessional behavior in a minute too. But here's Toronto Medical Officer of Health, EP Davila, is married to Dr. Richard Choi, who has collected money from Big Pharma, including Pfizer and AstraZeneca. This is a huge conflict of interest with potential benefit from prolonged lockdowns. Yeah, so, I mean, here's Here's the information. And here's Lindsay Murphy. She says, do you recognize this? Strange how so many public health members supporting lockdown have these interesting connections. John Tory, C. Elliott, are you sure you can trust the people around you? And so this is a thread going through the conflict of interest that is inherent within the people who are advising to continue these draconian lockdowns. And what data are they using? They don't deal in data. They deal in culture and tradition. They deal in just doing it long enough so that you accept it and you stop questioning it, right? That's it. Donald Walsh says, when do we say as a scientific medical community enough with the slights and deriding comments from Dr. Fissman? Plenty of room for rigorous debate, but to deride the reputation of Dr. Cohn and that of sick kids is disturbingly unprofessional. Could it be that Dr. Cohn worked tirelessly to get kids back in school and away from online learning? This is an idea well supported in the literature and designed to foster child development. Perhaps the issue is that Dr. Fissman is forming his opinions around his documented conflict of interest. Ontarians deserve calm, rational leadership during these times, and Dr. Cohn has provided that. So he's advocating for Dr. Cohn. But here's Dr. Fissman. Ludvigsson, I've got that wrong, a pediatrician accused of suppressing data on child COVID deaths in NEJM, cited in current Ontario documents on safe schools. Damage done extends well beyond Sweden. This document needs revision. Sick kids. So he's sniping at sick kids, saying that their conclusions are wrong because they cited somebody who he doesn't agree with. I just think that it's interesting that we've got somebody who is so comfortable being so arrogant and cocky and having these public conflict of interest, advising the people who are making laws and rules. I think it's really inappropriate. And I think it's inappropriate that Fissman himself hasn't stepped down. I think it's inappropriate that the Davila and the medical officers of health are continuing the ruinous economic policies that they're continuing to advocate for, with no regard for the impact they're having. Like, with no regard. It's incredible. On to vaccinations. Okay, this is an update about adverse events in Alberta for vaccination, and it says COVID-19 numbers for Alberta reported on February 26. And at the bottom there, the last one, it says adverse events are classified as any health problem following immunization. They're not necessarily caused by the vaccine. And so anything that happens after the vaccine is not attributed to the vaccine, but if you die within a 28-day window of having a positive COVID test, that's a COVID death. Interesting, right? That's interesting. So if you got the vaccine, say you were diagnosed and had a positive COVID test on February 1st, got the vaccine on February 8th, and died on February 15th. Is that a COVID death because it's within 28 days, or is that a vaccine death? The adverse event isn't classified as a vaccine death because people die, right? All adverse events are classified as any health problems following immunization. They're not necessarily caused by the vaccine. So what takes precedence there? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm asking. Here is Ontario will use the AstraZeneca vaccine for people between the ages of 60 and 64, suggesting different pathways to administer the vaccine than Pfizer and Moderna. But here's the thing. Government website, adverse vaccine reactions. 52 pages of adverse reactions to AstraZeneca vaccine from January 4th to February 14th. 114,625 reactions and 205 deaths. That's AstraZeneca. 54 pages of adverse reactions to Pfizer vaccine from December 9th to February 14th. 77,207 total reactions and 197 deaths. What's the death count from the last flu year? This is taken from the UK government's vaccine adverse reactions tracking. I don't know if Canada has an equivalent. The United States does, Europe does, the UK does. Does anybody have Canada's link? I haven't looked. I haven't looked recently. I looked at the beginning when I started seeing these. Here's another one, but I haven't looked recently. And I thought that possibly they would exist prior to, just for other vaccine injury and stuff. It's not like vaccine injury is new, but I haven't seen it. So that's on my list. If you've got the link to the Canadian one, please leave it in the comments. Okay, here's Ned Nikolov, and he says, speaking of adverse reaction caused by COVID mRNA vaccines, these are the latest stats from the EU database. In just 2 weeks since February 13, the total number of adverse reaction increased 45%, while serious cases, increased 51%. So you can see that here. Here are the Eudora vigilance stats from 2 weeks ago, compared them to the stats shown above the tweet, in the above tweet, excuse me. And so I'm not going to go through the numbers here necessarily, but I think that it's interesting that the vaccine adverse reactions are increasing, and I'm not surprised by that. How does that compare to flu, right? How many deaths would it take for the flu vaccine worldwide, or even just in the area that it's being rolled out? How many would it take for that flu vaccine to be declared, oh, well, we're not going to do that one this year? I don't know. Has that happened before? I know that when there were 60 I think people in 2009 or 2010 in the H1N1 pandemic at that point in time, who got narcolepsy, and they weren't sure if it was the vaccine causing the narcolepsy, but there were so many new instances of narcolepsy they stopped the vaccination. And so 60, I think 60 was the number, is a lot less than just the AstraZeneca and the Pfizer deaths. And those weren't even deaths, and they stopped those, right? They stopped that vaccination. So that seems weird, right? Anyway, moving on. Or here's breaking from NACI. NACI is, hold on, I'll show you. National Advisory Committee on Immunization. This is Canada's own, okay? Not Pfizer, not Moderna, not the manufacturer, not AstraZeneca, not Oxford. NACI, Canada's vaccine guys. Quote, jurisdictions should maximize the number of individuals benefiting from the first dose of vaccine by extending the interval for a second dose of vaccine to 4 months. Acknowledges no 4-month studies exist, but 2 months shows sustained high level of protection. We just want to experiment with you guys. We would just love to have as many people take the first dose as possible for reasons. It's for your safety, right? Just don't look at the adverse reactions, right? Isn't that weird? And why has anybody asked Pfizer or AstraZeneca or Moderna about this, right? So a little while ago, I told you about Quebec making it available after 90 days, which is roughly 3 months. And now they're extending it even further? Yeah, sure. Hey, man, why not? Put that in my arm. Do you have any heroin as well? No, I'm not going to watch you cook it. It's fine. I trust you. First the vaccine, then the heroin. Like, why not, right? Just freebase it on a spoon. It's cool. I watch Trainspotting. Okay, but this is not safe. This is unbelievable that it's just being kind of papered over by the press, right? And, oh yeah, we've got our national vaccine guys to approve this, so totally cool. Just fine in Canada, everyone. It's so concerning. And I mean, like, I don't have all the answers. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. I don't know. Maybe it's totally safe and we have nothing to worry about, right? But I don't know. And I don't know that they know. It's not It's not exactly reassuring to me that these guys say that it is, right? Who are these guys and who's paying them, right? Honestly, like, I would much prefer to have like one study with maybe people who are going to get the vaccine 80 years old and up, right? Or 60 years old and up, AstraZeneca, right? 65 and up, that says that doing this idea is worthwhile and beneficial. Just one. But no, we'll use the expertise of the NACI. They know, right? My goodness. Anyway, here is Unifor. Okay, we're bailing out Air Canada. I just thought that we're done on the vaccines now. It's insanity. I can't imagine what data they're using for this, and I would love to know it. But we're bailing out Air Canada. Air Canada gave, they accepted money for trips that they couldn't deliver, and when they were asked for refunds last year, they said, yeah, we'll give you like equivalent vouchers for when this whole thing's over, right? And a lot of people said, yeah, but that's actually, I don't have a job right now, so I'd really like just the money. Give me the money back. And so now they said, in exchange for a bailout, we'll give people back their money. We've spent all that money. Sorry. Unifor says that Air Canada has agreed to refund customers for canceled or postponed flights during the pandemic in exchange for a federal bailout. Ottawa and the airlines are still in negotiations over an aid package, though Unifor's Jerry Diaz tells me airlines have agreed to Ottawa's key demand to offer refunds. Yeah, we'll give them refunds. Just how many zeros are on that check, and does that cover all the refunds? Honestly, it's just crazy. Documents. So apparently Justin Trudeau made an announcement about PPE landing at a certain airport, and then some very studious and plugged in thieves got a truck to pick it up and stole it. Ha, right? the things that the press doesn't want you to know. So Holly Doan digs these things up. Documents: Feds concealed multi-million-dollar heist of pandemic masks in Hamilton after delivery announced by Justin Trudeau. Okay, context. On the evening of July 4th, 2020, a shipment of approximately 2 million surgical masks was picked up at the cargo jet warehouse in Hamilton for a scheduled delivery to a PPE shipment. No, to a warehouse in to a warehouse in Quebec being used by the government of Canada to store and inventory PPE shipments. Percolator is responsible for the transport of PPE from CanJet's warehouse in Hamilton to PHAC warehouse. Canada has been advised by Percolator that the masks were not picked up by one of their subcontractors as scheduled. Local authorities, Hamilton Police, are investigating. These lines have been prepared in collaboration with PHAC, anticipation in media interest. So, I mean, that's July 4th, 2020. Did you hear anything about that massive heist? No? Huh. Isn't that weird? 2 million masks vanished on a warm summer night in an unmarked truck. No one said a word to this day to the police, Hamilton Airport, Percolator, Department of Public Works, and Prime Minister's office don't want to talk about it. Yikes, eh? We don't answer questions we don't like. Sorry, next question. Heist? What heist? No, that doesn't happen in Canada. This is a happy dictatorship. Smiling, okay? There's no illegal guns. We've dealt with the other guns. People don't commit crimes in Canada. Sorry, we're not answering that question. Charlie Angus says, I'm concerned that the Kielburger brothers are refusing to testify before the ethics committee. Did you know Craig Kielburger was on the debate commission for Trudeau? Ha, right? Ha is all I say. They should welcome the opportunity to reassure donors and taxpayers by answering the allegations. We've already been forced to issue legal summons against 2 other we officials. So they're saying that we're gonna call you to testify, but guess what, guys? Like, interesting to me. If you were interested in this, they shredded the documents months ago. Joe Warmington took a picture of the trucks picking up the documents to the shredder. So if you were interested in this, you could have moved on it. You had the opportunity, and you didn't. And now the company is defunct, and these guys are private citizens, and they may have committed fraud, and they may be beholden to their donators, or the patrons, the people who donated to them. But I don't know that Canada. I don't know that we can do anything about this, right? Like, it's a good thing they didn't get $1 billion of our money, eh? Like, lucky us, I guess, right? But Trudeau's still in charge. Nobody seems to care about that. He shut down Parliament to deal with not getting to the bottom of this because it was that explosive, right? And here we are again. Are we going to shut down Parliament again? Oh, we got an election coming, right? Ridiculous. The Kielburger brothers, says Charlie Angus again, are closely connected to Justin Trudeau, his family, and key cabinet ministers. Their defiance of a parliamentary committee is concerning. They need to stop playing political games and answer the allegations. They should... No. You missed your opportunity. You could have done something, but you missed your opportunity. Sorry, man. Mercedes Stevenson says, I attended a press conference. This is updated Meng Wanzhou, and I actually have good news to finish today on. So anyway, that's interesting. Anyway, this is updated on Meng Wanzhou and the 2 Michaels. Okay. I attended a press conference with the Chinese embassy today. I asked if Michael Korvig and Michael Spavor's families will be able to visit as Meng Wanzhou's family came to Canada to see her. The ambassador did not answer the question. What he said is below. Quote, as I just mentioned, the 2 Canadian citizens detained and prosecuted in China because they have been involved in suspected crimes endangering national security. Ambassador Chong Piu. The relevant Chinese judicial organs are handling that case according to law, and their local rights are ensured and guaranteed. So that's my answer. All their local rights are ensured and guaranteed. I asked the ambassador why he seemed to be delinking the cases between Kovig and Spavor and Meng. Is the Chinese government saying that if the extradition request for Meng was dropped, it would not trigger the release of the 2 Michaels? Ambassador's answer, as I stated many times, and our side states many times, there is no connection between these cases. They are totally different in nature, and for the Meng Wanzhou incident, it is not simply a judicial case. It is a very serious political incident, and the most urgent thing for the Canadian side to do is to take decisions as soon as possible and to release her, and that will help move our relationship back onto the normal track. So that's not so good news. That wasn't good news. Right? But it's nothing new. Like, if you've been paying attention, our relationship with China recently is not great. They are imprisoning our citizens. Well, there's a long list of things that have gone very, very awry with China, which is strange considering the closeness between Xi and Trudeau, right? It seems like they're on the same page. Line 5. This is the good news. Yesterday, I was upset that I didn't have any good news. It was 45 minutes of just awfulness, and I was feeling a little down. I feel bad for the kids at school. I feel bad for the kids at school whose parents don't give them the right to advocate for their own rights. If they feel like they need a breathing break, they can't advocate for their own rights. They can't say I'm exempt. They should be able to say I'm exempt, but their parent is the person in charge. And the assumption is the parent having the child there in the mask negates the exemption the child can autonomously bring about, right? Because the parent will be told your child is not wearing a mask, and the parent will say, Timmy, get your mask on, because they believe the whole thing, right? You should give your child at least the autonomy. They tell the school, if my kid takes the mask off, that's not a problem. That's an exemption, and you got to deal with it. But I feel very badly for kids who are stuck in a bad situation because they can't get out of that bad situation. There's no rational adult for them to go, listen, these people are crazy. Or what they're asking me to do is crazy. They didn't seem to be crazy, and the things they say seem rational and normal, but this mask, not happening. Kids can't say that, and I just feel awful for them. So I'm sorry that maybe it was a little personal and I was a little down. But here's my good news, okay? This isn't good news, but the next story is good news. This is 222 minutes. For those of you who don't know, this is the same Governor Whitmer that is spearheading the attempt to shut down Line 5. So the MPs are getting involved. The bad news is it's Catherine McKenna. She's getting involved, and she's talking about swimming in the Strait of Mackinac. She says, good call with Governor Whitmer to discuss progress on Goldie Howe Bridge between Windsor and Detroit. Looking forward to continuing Canada's partnership with Michigan to build back better and create good jobs, and hoping to swim across the Straits of Mackinac. Sure, whatever. I think that it's interesting that we've got MPs who are talking personally with Whitmer, and they're not bringing up Line 5. Line 5 is a big problem. However, this is the first story that gave me hope with regards to, I would love it if we just had the regular normal problems to deal with, like bad governance and bad spending and inappropriate immigration policies, and, like the regular bad Canadian politics that we have to talk about all the time. And I would even be happy to get rid of like COVID politics and just talk about all the bad spending and the bad choices that our government is making specifically that way. Like, we don't even need to talk about the removal of civil liberties and stuff. If we could have all that back, I'd be great. But I was saying, like, I don't want to deal with gas being rationed and gas being like $4 a liter because Line 5 is shut down. And this is pending. Like, this is May 18th, I think is the date. So this is good news on this front. Ottawa, says the Globe and Mail, is willing to intervene in Line 5 energy dispute with Michigan. Now, I thought maybe they'll pull a bait and switch, right? I was saying you don't want heroes because sometimes those heroes will screw you, right? They'll take their payoff and say, yeah, well, bulldoze it anyway. See you guys. And so maybe you don't want the hero, right? But this one seems like they're actually looking to maintain the service, and they will invoke treaties to make sure that stays true. So I think that this is actually good. Here we go. Ottawa says it's willing to intervene if necessary in the Line 5 energy dispute between the state of Michigan and Enbridge Incorporated. Michigan's governor has ordered the May 2021 shutdown of a major pipeline running through her state, a line that serves as a key energy conduit for Ontario and Quebec. Michael Grant, the senior Department of Global Affairs official, told a parliamentary committee Tuesday that the federal government would prefer that the U.S. state and the Canadian pipeline company resolve the issue amicably. Enbridge has taken the state of Michigan to court over the matter, but he said Ottawa reserves the right to get involved. He said that could include invoking a 1977 bilateral pipeline treaty between Canada and the United States. Quote, "Our priority is to find a friendly solution between Michigan and Enbridge," Mr. Grant, Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Americas, told MPs. He was responding to questions from Bloc Québécois MP Simone Pierre Saval Tremblay. Mr. Grant said Ottawa intends to use all possible tools to achieve this. If it's necessary to use the 1977 agreement, we will use it. Under the decades-old treaty, Canada can request negotiations with the U.S. and, if necessary, binding arbitration to settle the matter. So that's good. I mean, they're willing to use the big guns being the legal big guns. Ottawa is willing to weigh in, which lends support to Enbridge, which doesn't necessarily undermine Whitmer, but if Whitmer's going against Enbridge and a treaty that they're willing to invoke, sometimes just the threat of invoking the treaty is enough. Just like when Ford said, I'll use the notwithstanding clause if you force me to, but I'm going to push this through. And it's going through either way. It might be enough just to get her to back down. I don't know. Maybe we'll send in Catherine McKenna to negotiate. Right? No. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know. The last one is in Nova Scotia. They've got volunteers keeping the COVID pop-up testing sites running. What? Why not pharmacies? Why not doctors' offices? Ridiculous. So anyway, there's lots going on. There's lots always going on. And, yeah, it's fun, right? It's fun, except that it's horrifying. It's horrifying and scary. And I don't know if we'll have enough MPs who grow a backbone in the short amount of time that we need them to grow a backbone to maintain the culture of our country. And by that, I mean, if you allow something to carry on for long enough, eventually the division created by this guy creating the world for everybody in that room by saying these two circles are different, just becomes culture. It continues down, it continues on and on and on until somebody forcefully changes it. And we're living through a forceful change right now. We're living through people saying, well, your tradition of not taking vaccines and not wearing masks and all of that stuff, that's done, right? Welcome to masks. Welcome to mandatory vaccines every 3 months if they can get it, right? I mean, we can't get that procurement, but man, if they could keep them, if they could do it, they'd take all that money. Pfizer, Moderna, the people who are on the take, the people who are maintaining the lockdowns, the people who are making sure that the vaccination passports are in the pipeline, all of that stuff. They'll do it if we let them. If we allow our reality to be unilaterally dictated by a single person and then have that reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, it becomes culture and then becomes tradition. And then, well, and then where are we, right? Problems. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful